By the way, I don't think you can see my shirt clearly. It just looks like a dome, but actually I think I have to move the camera back for you to see it. It's Darth Vader! Hi everyone, it's Clarice, and if I'm able to edit this on time, then today should be June 1. Which means that it's time for my May wrap-up. In April, I was able to read 10 books, which I'm still not sure how I did, but I somehow managed to. Unfortunately, in May, I wasn't able to read nearly as much. This May, I read a total of 5 books, which is actually more like 4 books, but I managed to finish like a collection of comics today, which is May 31 as I'm filming this. So technically it's 5 books, but that's 4 novels, so I feel really inadequate compared to myself in April, but 5 books isn't bad. 5 books is good. But anyway, now I'm, I think, 3 books behind on my Goodreads challenge, which is weird because up until this month, I've been ahead by 1 or 2 books. But that's okay. I'm gonna catch up eventually. Before I get to the books that I read in May, I just want to share something. I don't normally do book hauls, so I don't want to have to put this in a separate video, but I'm just so happy with this recent purchase that I just want to share it. I bought this beautiful book yesterday. This is Lamb, The Gospel According to Biff, Christ's Childhood Pal. I've mentioned it in a lot of Top 5 Wednesday videos and other videos, because it's one of my favorite books. But I never owned a physical copy of it. A couple of times I've read it on my Kindle, but I find it ridiculous to not own a physical copy of one of my favorite books. I just never see it anywhere. I was assuming I'd buy it in an edition that looked like this. These are a couple of Christopher Moore's other books. So when I saw it in this edition, the one that looks like a Bible, it has the gold pages and has the freaking bookmark, I had to. It's one of my favorite books. And this is the special edition. I had to, so I bought it. Now it's here on my shelf and I'm so happy. So anyway, sorry about that. I don't know if any of you actually cared, but now it's time to get to the wrap-up. The first 3 books I read this month were the last 3 books in the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series by Rick Riordan. I read the first 2 in the end of April, and I read these 3 in the start of May. I actually already filmed a review for this over a week ago, but haven't gotten around to editing it. Hopefully I can get that up this week. So because of that, I don't want to really share too much of my thoughts, but I really enjoyed the series as a whole. And while I gave every single book in the series 4 stars on Goodreads, I actually significantly enjoyed these 3 more than the first 2. It's a really fun series, and I guess you'll hear more of my thoughts in the review. The next book I read was Days of Blood and Starlight, which is the second book in the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series by Laini Taylor. I read Daughter of Smoke and Bone in July last year, I think. If not July, around then. So that was a long time ago. And I actually really, really liked it. Not enough for it to be among my favorite books ever, but it was this close. It was really good. And the main reason I took so long to read the second book is because it was never at the bookstore. I always had other books to buy, and I always just saw the first and third books in the series in the bookstore, but never this one. So I never got to buy it. And the other day I saw it, so I bought it, and then I read it, and it was really good. I have maybe one major issue with it, but basically, as with the first, I give it 4.5 stars. Such a weird story. Like, it's one of those stories that I cannot, for the life of me, seem to explain to people. Like, if people ask what I'm reading and tell them I'm reading this series and they ask me what it's about, I just can't explain. If you've read this, hopefully you're sharing the same dilemma as me. It has such an interesting world, such an engrossing plot, and such beautiful writing. So I highly recommend this series if you enjoy any of those things, especially if you like young adult fantasy. And the last book I finished this month, which I finished maybe an hour ago and read in probably like 30 minutes, but it still counts, is Last Seen After Midnight, which is the 4th volume of Trese Comics. Trese I've mentioned in this channel a couple of times, but if you didn't know, Trese is a Filipino comic book series. It's written in English, but it's by Filipinos, and it revolves a lot around Philippine culture. It follows a detective named Alexandra Trese, who deals with the more peculiar cases that normal detectives can't deal with. And by peculiar cases, I mean the ones dealing with the supernatural, with creatures straight out of Philippine mythology. I'm in the Philippines and I grew up in the Philippines, but I did not grow up hearing about Philippine horror stories so much. It wasn't really my thing. But reading this is getting me so interested in it. And also it's just a really easy read. It's really hard to put down. And it just incorporates these mythological creatures into modern times and modern day Philippine settings, and even references some pop culture. Like in the last comic here, it references a character that is clearly representing Manny Pacquiao. And yes, for foreigners out there, it's not pronounced Pacquiao, it's pronounced Pacquiao, just so you know. But just things like that. But yeah, I'm really liking this comic book series so far. It's the 4th volume. I have 2 more to go to be caught up. So there. So anyway, that was all I read this month. It's probably a shorter wrap-up than I usually do. And I also just noticed now that I read a lot of things relating to mythology. I think all of them you could actually relate to mythology. Obviously, Percy Jackson's Greek mythology, and obviously Tressa deals with Philippine mythology, but actually Daughter of Smoke and Bone, the series, actually deals with angels and demons as well. And maybe you could even count that as mythology in some way. It's been a pretty mythological May, and I didn't even notice it up until this very moment. But besides those books, I actually also started finally on A Storm of Swords by George R.R. Martin. I've been talking about this book for so long, and I've been saying I was going to read it for so long, and now I'm finally reading it. I'm about 17% of the way through. And I guess reading such a massive book isn't going to help my Goodreads goal so much, but the Goodreads goal doesn't matter. It's what I want to read, so I'm gonna read it. So anyway, how was your reading month this May? I'd love to hear about the books that you read. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And also, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!